the one that supposedly crashed in Pennsylvania. The latest of the professional organizations to form is Intelligence Officers for 9/11 Truth, which has been formed indeed by Annie McComb. One of the first people to join was William Christensen, a former senior CIA official. If you are one of the people who just knows that the position of the 9/11 Truth movement is too implausible to be worth a few days of your time to study, listen to what he wrote in 2006. I spent the first 4.5 years since September 11th utterly unwilling to consider seriously the conspiracy theories surrounding the attacks of that day. In the last half year, and after considerable agony, I've changed my mind. I now think there is persuasive evidence that the events of September 11th did not unfold as the Bush administration and the 9/11 Commission would have us believe. Who do you believe knows more about the real world of intelligence affairs, Alexander Coburn or former CIA senior official? The backbone of the 9/11 Truth movement is now constituted by these professional organizations of scientists, architects, engineers, firefighters, military officers, pilots, and intelligence officers. And there are still more. This past year has witnessed the formation of medical professionals for 9/11 Truth, lawyers for 9/11 Truth, religious leaders for 9/11 Truth, and very recently, political leaders for 9/11 Truth, which already includes past or present members of the parliaments of Australia, Denmark, Germany, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, Pakistan, Sweden, the United States, the UK, and Europe. And also a former governor of one of the states in the United States. Accordingly, people who have thought of the movement as constituted by those who can be dismissed as conspiracy nuts, even morons and idiots, need to reevaluate if they want their opinions to be based on the real world. Here is the present situation. And if you are a journalist who is going to quote one sentence from my lecture, oh, and let me mention, just in these very weeks, a new organization is being formed, media professionals for 9/11 Truth. So if you are a journalist or some other media professional, if you will give me your email address, I will send it to the organizers of this new organization. So now, here's the sentence that, if you're going to quote one, I would suggest you quote. Among independent scientists and professionals in the relevant fields who have studied the evidence, the weight of scientific and professional opinion is now overwhelmingly on the side of the 9/11 Truth movement. Whereas well over 1,000 such people have gone on record publicly, some of them at the risk of their jobs, to question the official theory. There are virtually no scientists and no professionals in the relevant fields who have studied the evidence and yet have gone on public record in support of the official conspiracy theory, except for those people who are not independent, meaning that their livelihoods are dependent upon their publicly supporting the official story. Now, this caveat is important because, as Sinclair Lewis, a famous American muckraker and a writer, said in 1935, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. Except for such people," let me quote that again. "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. Except for such people, virtually everyone who has expertise in a relevant field and who has seriously studied the evidence rejects the official conspiracy theory. It is time, therefore, for journalists and everyone else to take a second look." Journalists often say they cannot write about an issue that is considered old news. They must have new evidence. Another reason why it is time for a second look at 9/11 is the existence of a wealth of new evidence. There is so much that I can mention only a small portion of it. My latest book is The New Pearl Harbor Revisited, which brings up to date to the end of 2008 the story that I had told in the New Pearl Harbor back in 2004. All this new evidence, the book is this thick. There is a lot of new evidence. So here's a tiny portion of it. Some of this evidence has amazingly been supplied by our FBI. Although the FBI was originally the main agency creating and protecting the official account, it has recently provided several revelations that undermine this account seriously. One example involves one of the central pillars of the official conspiracy theory: the claim that the attacks were authorized by Osama bin Laden. That claim is still used to support the American military effort in Afghanistan, which President Obama recently encouraged Europeans to support more wholeheartedly. But if you will go to the FBI website labeled Most Wanted Terrorists and turn to its page on Osama bin Laden, you will find that he is wanted for various terrorist attacks, but that he is not mentioned, but that 9/11 is not one of the terrorist attacks he is wanted for. When one member of the 9/11 movement called the FBI to ask why not, he got the head of investigative publicity, who said, "Because the FBI has no hard evidence connecting bin Laden to 9/11. Now, the papers in the United States have not revealed that to us, but I'm sure here in Germany you have a much more open press, so you've probably all heard that, right? How many people have read this in a German newspaper? Let's see, I'm up to 0 so far. Another example involves the reported telephone calls from the airliners, through which people on the ground were told that the planes had been hijacked by Middle Eastern terrorists. Some 15 people reported that they had been called by loved ones using mobile phones. United Flight 93, the plane that supposedly crashed in Pennsylvania, was by itself said to have been the source of about 12 of these mobile phone calls. One passenger, Dina Burnett, reported that she had received 3 or 4 calls from her husband, Tom Burnett, from his cell phone, his mobile phone. She knew he was using his mobile phone, she said, because she looked at her caller ID and recognized Tom's mobile phone number. There could be no doubt.